under contract on a small business.
Almost there.
That's right, with Thanksgiving now behind us, I now have a different thing to look forward to, and that is this business acquisition, which we're scheduled to close before Christmas, but we'll get into more details in just a second. But for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Jack Duffley, and in this series, I post monthly updates on my net worth as I attempt to reach a $1 million net worth and a $30,000 per year investment or passive income. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss future updates. I put a new video out on the 1st of every month. The last month was a continuation of what I've really been doing for the past few months, which is searching for a business. I've been putting a lot of my free time towards that business search, and it's definitely been an interesting journey, and I've learned quite a bit through the process of just looking for a business, especially towards niching down and not looking too broadly because there are just so many different types of businesses out there. I've seen business listings for ice cream shops, for glass blowing businesses, for pretty much everything in between, cleaning services and all that sort of stuff. And it can really be overwhelming in trying to figure out what niche to actually go for, because it's really not that effective to go for all of them because they're all so different and they have their own unique things to look out for. And it's just going to be overwhelming if you're trying to become an expert in all of them, which goes for investing in anything else as well. You don't want to go beyond your circle of competency, at least too much, to the point where it'd be very hard to actually learn what you're actually investing in, or you're just spread too thin across too many different types of things, and it might be difficult to actually get good at any of them. So there is some potential value in having some diversity in the types of things you're working on, because the perspectives from one thing can apply to another, and when you have many different types of perspectives or things you're working on, then you might have a more unique perspective that might actually be more valuable, but anyways, it's kind of beside the point. For the purposes of finding a business, it made a lot of sense to niche down. So I personally narrowed my search down to a service-based business, a simple business, one that's easy to understand. And I can't go into too many details about this specific business because I haven't bought it yet and we have an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so I have to be careful about what I say. But this business is in the cleaning niche, and I'll go into more detail on the actual business again if I end up closing, which would be at the end of this month. In the meantime, I've been going through the due diligence process and trying to figure out whether this business is actually a decent deal or whether it's actually what I'm expecting. Of course, there will always be new things that I discover after closing if I do go through with it. But the past week or so has been dedicated towards looking at the financials of the business, looking at the way they're operating things, and in trying to figure out how I might be able to improve it if I go and take it over, or maybe how I can maintain some things and just keep the status quo when it makes sense. I will say I have this business under contract for under $200,000. It's thrown off around $70,000 in cash flow over the last year, and the purchase includes about $50,000 worth of equipment and inventory. So if this transaction goes through and I buy the business, I'd end up with ideally a significant cash flow engine, as long as I don't run the business into the ground. And ideally, if I can improve the business, it'll have even greater cash flow potential, and then that would obviously help things in other areas of my financial life. Cash flow is king. I'll go over how I plan on financing this transaction in just a bit, but first let's go over this month's numbers. As a reminder, last month our net worth was just under $84,000. As always, let's start with the good stuff, the assets. You'll notice this new entry down here, which is the earnest money deposit. That is earnest money for the business that we're under contract for. So that's about as good as cash. It's just cash sitting in the escrow company's account. So if we end up going through with the purchase, that money will be applied towards closing. Our stock portfolio did not take a huge dive this month, so that's good for net worth purposes, and we still have over 6 figures in taxable stocks and securities. And then I'm approaching $50,000 in my retirement accounts between my IRAs and my 401k. But otherwise, pretty much everything stayed the same on the asset side of things. I'm considering selling some stocks if it means that I'd have some more money to invest into the business, or if I need to because I'm unable to finance a particular amount, but that's more of a last ditch thing. I'm not doing that at the moment, but it is on the table. But in total, that leaves us with just over $1.1 million in assets. And now on to liabilities. The biggest change here was in my M1 Finance margin. I did pull out about $7,500 to make sure that I had enough money right away for the earnest money deposit, since I was still moving a bunch of money around. And I was opening up a new business banking account, so I wanted to have the cash quickly in one place. So that's why I took out the margin. I would look to pay this back pretty quickly unless I end up needing that money to actually fund the close. But I'm actually pretty close to M1 Finance's margin limit. Not that I would get margin called once I hit the limit, but they only let you take out a portion of your portfolio as margin, not 100% of it. But if my stock portfolio falls to the level of my margin loan, then I would be subject to a margin call. So there is a risk there. And that's why I would want to focus on paying this down pretty quickly assuming this deal goes through. And if it doesn't go through, I would probably pay off a good chunk of this margin right away. And in other news, and rather unsurprisingly, the Biden administration has decided to kick the can even further with the student loan freeze, so we still don't have to pay these loans off yet. Helicopter money is fun. That said, now that my wife is working full-time, most, if not all of her salary is going to go towards some sort of debt paydown, including paying back the student loans that we used to fund her program. We'll probably just opt towards the ones that are actually charging interest for now. Thanks, government. But in total, that leaves us with slightly over $1 million in liabilities, which means our net worth has grown to just short of $104,000, which is an increase of just under $20,000, which is a series record to this point. So our debt ratio has fallen down to 90.6%, and our passive income remains at $1,100 per month. Yay, we're back over 6 figures. It's amazing what happens when you aren't spending money on furniture and home renovations every week. Now, when it comes to small businesses, you have some options. You can use something like a small business loan through the SBA, and the terms on those loans can be pretty great, especially compared to the other types of loans that you probably have to go through to actually finance a business purchase, at least a small business purchase. You can also ask the seller themselves to finance the purchase, which is where they would actually give you the money, at least on paper, to actually close the transaction, and then you pay the seller over time. So terms on that can be pretty flexible, assuming the seller is willing to do it at all. But another option, which is what I'm doing here, is to actually use my personal credit. I'm going to be taking out some personal loans because it's a small enough purchase that I should be able to qualify for enough financing just using my personal income, which would be nice because I could actually close a lot faster than if I was using something like an SBA loan. And if I was going to use an SBA loan, I'd have to give a personal guarantee on the loan anyways. So from a risk perspective, it really wouldn't be all that different. But I plan on paying off these loans as quickly as possible. I don't want to hold out all this debt for a very long time. If I made the purchase, I'd use the cash flow from the business, both to reinvest into the business when appropriate, but mostly to pay off this debt. And I'd also still have my salary coming in to pay down this debt even quicker. And I don't plan on needing my personal credit to take out a big loan like a mortgage for a primary residence anytime soon, at least compared to what we were doing, which was buying a house every year pretty much. So I think it's worth using it for this in the meantime. Of course, we'll see how things actually play out. If all goes well with the purchase and actually running the business, I'd be in a significantly better cash flow position. But if all goes poorly, yeah, that would sting, but ultimately I'd be able to recover from it at some point. And I would have learned something along the way, since it would really just be like business tuition, maybe pretty expensive business tuition, but surely I'm going to learn something either way into actually how to run a business successfully and to run a team efficiently. To this point, I've run some small teams when it comes to running my rental portfolio. I have help there. I've hired help as well for my content. So it would be a pretty big step up from there, but not something totally outlandish. And I do want to make sure it's a relatively simple business that I'm buying, because the simpler it is, the easier it's going to be to actually get acclimated with things and actually know what I'm doing. And that goes for finding, hiring, and training employees as well. But I will say that this purchase, or really I should say this potential purchase, is definitely exciting. I'm really looking forward to taking on the challenge and trying to find a way to improve a business and take it to the next level, and also grow as an entrepreneur, since I think this is a very effective route. And I think buying an existing small business is a really great way to do that, especially in my situation. But again, time will tell. I will definitely have some updates on how this all goes by the end of the month. But otherwise, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future updates. And until next time, take care.